All right, let's talk about the second suit on the list, the Acguy Firefighter type. Everybody knows it. Everybody uses it. I particularly dislike it. It is a suit that has stealth, it has a combo controller, and emergency evasion system. It has one dodge. It has stealth. It has all the quality of life skills you need, like shock absorber, anti-blast stabilizer. It has a head buffer, and it has anti-jamming. Anti-jamming is good in that it allows you to more easily see the Zaku Flipper and the Ifrit Noct, which are somewhat threats in this cost. The Ifrit Noct may be less so of a threat because it is so fragile and easily comboable. I think that the Ifrit Noct is probably worse than the Flipper, but that's a discussion for another video. It has this skill here called the WCU Optimizer. When you switch from a weapon within the weapon cluster unit, the machine gun, the bayonet, and the tow missile, the swap time is halved. This doesn't really matter. This only matters for one specific thing that we'll go over in a second. Here's my loadout. The rear unit is my HSM. This is my HSM option for that I use the least. These are the default options. This is the build. Just go all in on range damage. You are most likely not going to be using your melee too often. You're going to be using the other things more. So this is what I have. I don't have this thing max enhanced, so we're not using a comp frame. If you have the extra pips, use this. If you don't have the extra pips, take this out instead and use probably just melee armor 1. Melee armor 1's helpful. We'll use that. Let's quickly go over the suit and the mass driver, and we will go over its basics. We are not going to go over, for context, this series is just for the clan match in 2 weeks on mass driver, so we're not going to go over every single 350 suit, just a few suits at the cost that I think are notable enough to use. So we're not going to use Dozel Zabi custom because that's a melee only suit and it fails to do a lot of things at long range. The Acguy firepower type is good at all ranges, so we're going to use it here. The Zaku machine gun is our highest DPS option, although it doesn't seem like it. It is the highest DPS option that we have, doing around 150 if we have the stats that we do. But notice how, despite the fact that we shot 84 shots at this enemy, it didn't stagger. That's because this gun has a 1% stagger rating. What does this mean? It means this suit sucks when it comes to suppressing enemy interaction. Even though I'm shooting this thing with a bunch of bullets, this guy can shoot right back at me. He is not deterred by the fact that I'm shooting it. And he can stagger me much more easily than I can if I'm using my gun. Dang, he staggered me. So, what this means is that you should not be using just the machine gun. So we're going to talk about our second weapon here, the tow missile pod. The tow missile pod is an instant stagger. It has a 40% stagger rating, and it has slight homing, slight reticle guidance. Only slight though. The further away the target is, the more of a chance you have that the guidance will work. That one worked. The WCU, the Weapon Cluster Unit Optimizer, has the time it takes between your missile pod and your Zaku machine gun to swap. So instead of just shooting a machine gun, do this. Shoot the missile pod, then swap to your machine gun. Now you've layered a stagger option. You've layered a stagger option into your machine gun. Now all of a sudden, you have a threat. Now all of a sudden you're much more threatening. You have stagger power and you have damage. Your missile pod might miss, but that's okay. At least you tried. And the fact that the swap time is so little between the two things means that you aren't really giving that much up in terms of opportunity cost when it comes to this. Because the missile pod has some slight stagger, you can do things like this. You don't have to really reveal yourself too much. And you can still hit the enemy with it. That being said, the pod is still slow, so you don't want to use it to interrupt any raids. In fact, I would go on to say that the Acguy is actually very bad at stopping raids, and that's one of the reasons why I personally don't like it. It doesn't have a way of stopping maneuver armor in one move. This is 40%, this is 1%, and now we're going to talk about the third option, the rocket launcher, the head missile launcher. The head missile launcher does 20 times 4, 20 times 2, 20 times 2, 1, 2. Each of them do 20%. That's 80%. In theory, the missile pod and the head rocket launcher will stop maneuver armor. However, this requires a lot of prediction on your part. Say that the Gunkin over there is a raid, and he's going to attack this light pole, which is my support. I am not going to shoot the missile here, because he's going to end up here. When using the missile pod, try and predict where they're going to be after the missile pod is flying for a couple seconds. If the raid wants to kill my support, and it is a melee raid, he's going to get to that spot at some point, right there, because he wants to melee support. So instead of doing this, where I shoot him here and pray that the missile hits, shoot here, knowing that they're after my support, and shoot both of the missile pods afterwards, and that'll break NA. Another thing that the Acguy cannot do. We're going to talk about the things it can and can't do, because I am very negative about this thing. The rocket launcher is amazing while boosting stagger. It is your only option that you have to instant stagger while boosting, something that not a lot of suits have. However, missile into bayonet is not a true combo. Why is it not a true combo? Because the head rocket launcher is not part of the weapon cluster unit. When going from the rocket launcher to bayonet, you can see that it takes a little bit more time than if I went from the machine gun to the bayonet. And because of this is not a true combo. Enemy suits can roll out of it. So there's a little bit of knowledge on your part. If you know you're fighting an enemy that has no dodge roll, like a support, any support besides the Acguy support type, or a raid that doesn't have a dodge roll, like Prototype Grandpa, then this is a combo. But if it's a general with a dodge roll, or a raid with a dodge roll, or the Acguy support type, it's going to be able to dodge out of that. It's not a true combo. Keep that in mind. Last thing we're going to talk about is the backpack bomb. The backpack bomb is really weird. During the first half of the magazine, the cluster bombs come out of the right side of the Acguy shell. See that? On the next half of the magazine, they come out of the left side of the Acguy shell in a clockwise motion. We're not going to go over the specifics of this, but this is an option, but I'll go over just the basics. This is an option we have to shoot while boosting, and knowing where they're going to come out kind of helps with doing combos. For example, I know it's going to come out of my right side now, so you can combo it pretty easily, like this. And on the other half, I have to go to the other side again and get them to hit like that, to get them more easily hit. You can shoot these while boosting. I recommend using them to wall off a raid from attacking your support by getting in between the raid and your support and putting cluster bombs around them. You can also use this against a melee specific raid or a melee specific suit that's trying to chase you down. Just place these here, and all of a sudden they can't go this direction. They have to go the other direction. Don't count on these hitting. They're only there to deter people from advancing a certain way. That being said, if your teammate does knock down a suit, and you know it's going to happen, you can place these all around the suit, maybe 4-ish, and they should be able to combo off of another person's downswing. This is a really advanced maneuver, but we're not going to go over too much. But the short of it is, if you see that someone is attacking a suit and going for downswing, all you have to do is slide like this, and some cluster bombs will be placed there, and by the time the person gets downswung, they should have taken at least one or two of the bombs. The bombs are your highest DPS option, but you're never ever going to land them. One more thing we're going to go over is something that is not discussed often enough, and it's in the Accuy's enhancements. So not everyone's going to have this. Well, hopefully you will. Hopefully you've got enough dupes for this to be at least tier 3. The Acguy has this. It has explosives handling assist. I don't have it because I never expanded this thing, which I might eventually do. When this thing is at tier 5, it is able to plant and defuse bombs 2%, that's 2 seconds faster. It only takes 8 seconds to plant a bomb and 8 seconds to defuse a bomb. This is something nobody ever thinks about. Whenever a person sees that a timer has hit 109, they assume that the bomb can no longer be planted. This is not true. If the timer is between 109 and 108, the pilot of the Acguy firepower type can still plant can still plant a bomb. And if the timer is between if the timer is greater than 0.8, you can still defuse a bomb before the game ends. This is really something that nobody talks about, and I think that's really important to think about. The clan match that we're going to get into for PlayStation coming up is a basic match. As much as I hate base bombing and what it means for your team, leaving them behind in a outnumbered situation, you probably will need to do some base bombing in order to get a high enough amount of points in order to reach the top 40 bracket. You're going to need a lot of points. It's a point-based system. So having the explosive handling assist is helpful in that manner. And that's it for the Acguy firepower type. Make sure to use your missiles along with your machine gun, not just your machine gun. Know that the boosting head missiles are not a true combo into melee if they have a dodge roll. And don't be silly and use your mines when you have other options like your missile and your machine gun. And that's it.